So to get into it, we got some hot questions. Clients, current clients, past clients, they're calling us, texting us, asking a lot of these questions right here that we're going to pull up on the screen here for you. One of the first questions about this NAR settlement that we're getting hit with a lot was who does this impact the most?
From a day-to-day perspective, you have to look at who it impacts the most is the real estate consumer, the buyer and seller, and the real estate agent servicing them. Now, the lawsuit really addresses MLSs and a lot of other things, but let's just focus on from a day-to-day perspective, it impacts the consumer and their agent.
Mostly the consumer, their agent, right? Which kind of leads me to that next question is, because of this settlement, it's going to change how buyer's agents are getting paid. Who is going to be paying the buyer's agent fee?
To answer that question, it's probably best to understand how it currently exists and how typically a buyer's agent is paid. In the past, the majority of times a buyer's agent was paid from the cooperation rate that a listing agent provided. So what that means, a listing agent would sign a listing agreement with their seller. And as part of that listing agreement, the listing brokerage would decide they were going to cooperate, or the buyer's agent would earn a certain percentage of that commission at close of escrow. So if I, as a seller, signed a listing agreement and I agreed to pay you 6%, one of the questions that listing agent should have asked you is, how much do you want to cooperate? Meaning, how much should a buyer's agent earn by bringing us a buyer? And in the past, that typical amount was 2.5% to 3%, and it was set forth in the MLS.
Now, going forward, the compensation for the buyer's agent, that's something that's going to be obviously changed here, right?
So the lawsuit really wanted to say it's not beneficial for a buyer or a seller, but more specifically a seller, for that to be part of the MLS description. Because the fear was that buyer's agents wouldn't be serving their client as good as they should be because they're shopping for the highest cooperation rate than shopping on behalf of the buyer, and that sellers were not informed well about this cooperation rate, and that brokerages basically dictated that rate for the benefit of the brokerages and the agent and not for the benefit of the consumer. So what you have to look at as a consumer and as an agent is, okay, well, it's been uncoupled. Buyer's agent should enter into an agreement with their buyer that dictates how they're paid. So who can pay the buyer's agent? The seller can still pay them from the cooperation rate. A buyer can pay them independently, or they can get paid from a concession written into the contract. None of that's really changed, Brandon. It's just become more transparent that those fees can be uncoupled.
Question number 3, a lot of people have been asking, especially agents, right? How does a buyer's agent guarantee they get paid rather than question if? So how is a buyer's agent now going to guarantee that they're getting paid? Because going forward, right, if the seller's not guaranteeing any commission to be paid, how is this going to guarantee a buyer or buyer's agent?
So now part of the settlement says that before I, as your agent, can show you a property, Mr. Buyer, I have to enter into an agreement with you describing how I'm going to get paid. As a buyer, you should be asking that question. How are you going to get paid, Mr. Agent? And what is my obligation to you to pay that? I shouldn't say there's a guarantee, but the buyer agent agreement is going to determine how that buyer's agent is paid. So as a consumer, very important question. How much are you getting paid? Why am I paying you? What is your value? How are you earning this fee? And how are you going to get paid at close of escrow and the contract? All of those questions you should be asking.
You've been throwing around a word here a couple of times up in question 2 and here in question 3. What is a concession here? What does that word even mean? What is that?
Yeah. So
what is that telling us?
It's really, when we talked about concessions in the past, more often than not, it was like it was money given back to the buyer out of closing to offset a closing cost. Other parts of the country, not so much the Bay Area, we would see sellers offer a concession up to 1% to the buyer to buy down the rate. We saw that a lot as interest rates have gone up. Now it might be that to be applied wherever buyer sees fit, right? So maybe a seller offers a concession and the buyer can choose where they want that to go. Do they want it to go to title and escrow fees? Do they want it to go to pay down a rate, lender fees? Do they want it to pay their buyer's agent? So really, a concession is just that, a concession from the seller to the buyer to offset fees.
are commissions negotiable? Have they been negotiable? Are they going to continue being negotiable? Like, what do you have to say about that?
Commissions have always been negotiable. This lawsuit has done is intimated that they haven't been. Well, they have been, but now I think it'll be more apparent that commissions are negotiable, and that this decoupling of the listing commission and the buyer's commission are negotiable. And you as a consumer should always say, why are you worth that money that I'm paying you? Why are you worth that 2.5%? Why are you worth that 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%? And a good agent is going to be able to show why they're worth that. And a good agent is worth that. A good agent's going to bring you a higher price. A good agent is going to protect you from liability and exposure. A good agent is going to be able to negotiate on your behalf, is going to be able to market your property tremendously well and ease the stress of that transaction in a very valuable way. For us at the Oldham Group, we are well equipped and we can defend our value all day. So I, for one, welcome the opportunity to tell our story about why we are the right choice and how we earn our commissions. And if your agent isn't capable of telling that story and of telling and defending their value, then it's not the right agent, right?
Completely agree. So how is this going to affect transactions going forward? Is it going to be new, different paperwork? I mean, we kind of already went over the up above the buyer broker agreement, but is there going to be different paperwork? Is there going to be different, what would you have to say?
And this is one of those wild cards out there that concern a lot of agents. And this is where how is the actual nuts and bolts of a transaction going to change going forward? How is it going to impact lenders? How is it going to impact VA buyers and FHA buyers? How is it going to impact title and escrow? So there's a lot of things that we just don't know. But the buyer broker agreement, I think, is going to be the thing that we see in the Bay Area that it impacts the transaction the most.
Either we write an offer on this house or we don't write an offer on this house if you're a buyer, right? Depending on what's going on with this whole, buyer broker agreement. And getting into the next one here, number 8. And this could be, it could go either way, right? This could be a sensitive one, but who's the real winner in this lawsuit?
Aside from the actual lawsuit, right? And the judgment and who's going to be the benefit of the judgment. I'm looking more towards who's the winner out of the practice changes. The practice changes are really, they're only 2 pages of the settlement of the agreement, but that's really where the big industry change is coming from. And the real winner is transparency. In my opinion, the consumer always wins when things are transparent. And I'm happy about that. I'm really happy that consumers get to see or understand how agents earn their commission more. So consumer transparency and consumers are a big winner. The other big winner here are good professional agents. And the agents that have the ability to express their value and deliver that value are also big winners. So, that begs the question, who are the losers? The losers are the agents that aren't able to express their value proposition and defend their value.
Right. Yeah. They're going to get washed out, right?
Yeah.
Those, and I mean, this is literally like the next question here too, is what's going to happen to buyer's agents? Maybe the less, competent or less skilled agent. The less skilled buyer's agent is probably going to go away. The part-time agent. I mean, what's your opinion?
Well, what I hope happens is that through this transparency, buyers understand the importance of a buyer agent. And if you, as a buyer, don't understand that, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to do a buyer consultation with you so you can understand the importance of a very good buyer's agent. And what I think should happen is that consumers become more aware of the value that an agent delivers. You'll hear consumers say all the time, agents are way overpaid. And I can't disagree with that in some circumstances. If an agent is not an expert and they're not professional and they're not delivering value, they're not worth it. But if they are worth it. I think what should happen is that those agents that are able to deliver their value are going to do really well. The agents that aren't able to deliver value, that don't have that level of professionalism and expertise, are not going to do well and are probably going to be forced out of the business. Great agents are going to do really well. Bad agents probably need to find another profession.
And last question here, number 10, will in fact sellers end up making more money? Because this lawsuit was about disgruntled sellers in a way, right? This is where it kind of came into play where, oh, we have to pay another 2.5% or 3%. What? So do you think in the end, sellers will end up making more money because they don't have to be paying the quote unquote buyer agent fee anymore?
You know, a seller typically focuses on their net regardless. So will that net increase for a seller? I don't think so. I think that the net sheets will be more analyzed.
Yeah.
You know, I think sellers do that now, you know, but the focus has always been on the net. I really think what's going to happen is that the market is going to dictate fair market value, right? So does that mean that ultimately the fees get compressed and sellers net more money because fees are compressed? It's hard to say. I mean, you know, I think that buyer's agents will have to defend their value. Listing agents will have to defend their value. I think that a good listing agent is always going to bring a higher net to their client because they're going to have better exposure through marketing, better negotiation skills, and those agents are going to deserve the money that they're paid. They earn that 5-6% or 2.5-3% if there's no cooperation. A good agent is going to increase their net. Does that make sense to you, Brandon? Where you know, a good agent is going to give them a higher net than a bad agent.
I mean, the news, the headlines, they all make it sound like this is such a beautiful thing because sellers are going to be netting more or making more money. I mean, it's always going to come down to the one for the home and also the agent too. So it's not like a clear-cut answer as if will sellers make more money here?
There's so much goes into a seller making more money. You know, it is your agent giving you good advice on how to prep your home for the market? Are they giving you the right exposure to their home? Are they bringing in the most amount of buyers that are going to compete amongst themselves? So in the Bay Area, you know, what our job is to do for a seller is to market their home well so that they get multiple offers, so they get great exposure. So as many buyers as possible are making an offer on their home. And in the Bay Area, agents that do that find that their house is in a bidding war, right? And the agents that don't do that, they're not netting their client the amount of money they should.
Exactly. Long-winded answer, right? If you have a great agent, they're going to be netting you the most money regardless. So, you know, I would take their advice, right? If they're telling you this route is better or that route is better, you know, concessions are better or not doing that, whatever it is, right? If you've got a great agent working for you, I'm sure they're going to point you in the right direction in whatever market you're in, right? Because the Bay Area market's completely different than, you know, Wichita, right? Like it's completely different on how operations are even if you go down to, let's say, LA, right? Los Angeles, they do it completely different than up here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So really dependent on what market you're in.
Yeah. So as a seller, focus on your net. Ask your agent, how can I achieve the highest net possible? That agent might say, you know, first of all, we got to prep your home and we've got to do these repairs. Second of all, I want to market it this way. Ask them how they're going to market it. What tools and resources are they going to use to market their home? One of them might be, you know what, I think that we should cooperate 2.5-3% because ultimately that's going to get us the most exposure and deliver the most buyers to our house. And that's where you have to have that discussion. And it always should be the net. And oftentimes when we do that, we'll do like a multiple scenario net sheet, right? If you do X, we think you'll get Y. If you do this, you're going to get that, right? So it's really, okay, what are my options? What do you think I should do? How much do you think this will change my net? And that's what a good listing strategy should be.
100%. So I mean, these are 10 questions that we currently have. Kind of went through it, answered it. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that we get from just people across the board. So we may have to jump on here in maybe a couple of weeks or next week. I mean, who knows? Next week, this whole thing's really happened in less than a week. So we'll probably jump on, maybe do a part 2 to this. If there's different questions, jump on and then go through it, get them answered, get them up here, let the people know. And then if you guys obviously have any questions, drop them in the comments. We'll jump in there and kind of go through it.
Right on.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Andy, for jumping on here.